Well, several years ago, I welcomed the fact that stop and search was brought back by the then Home Secretary. I think it does need to be reviewed. I think stop and search saves lives. This horrendous incident happened just up the road from where I am. And, you know, for a 15-year-old schoolgirl to die in a knife attack is just a tragedy. And if there are policies that can help stop that happening, and I think stop and search is part of that sort of range of measures, then absolutely, I think it's an important tool for the police.
But we do see, Henry, some politicians, especially on the left, saying it's racist. They target, you know, ethnic minority groups the most. But we do know at the same time that you're 12 times more likely to be murdered in London if you are a young black man than a white man.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, I think it's ethnic minorities who are mainly the victims of knife crime, and therefore I think there's a strong argument to say that having stop and search and really bearing down on knife crime, which destroys families, destroys lives of people from across different communities, is something that's important to have. I don't see that as a racist policy at all.
I don't actually think the police, you know, look for black people or people of a different colour and think we're going to search them. I think they just do it as part of the job. And to be honest with you, Henry, if it saves one life, surely it's got to be worth it.
Well, I know a lot of police officers, obviously dealt with police officers for many years in my role as a Member of Parliament and previously as a local councillor. I know that they're very dedicated. They look at what they believe is the best evidence when they are looking to stop people who think might be getting into trouble. You know, I think we need to trust the judgment of the best police officers that exist in the world.
James, stop and search, is it the right thing to do? Is it ideal?
No, it's not the right thing. It's not ideal. I mean, we've got to look at why we've got this, these terrible crimes that are happening. And we've had now 13 years of cuts, the sorts of things that help keep kids off the street, make it less likely. You've had cuts to youth services, to community services, to further education. We've also seen basically the effective scrapping of community policing. And the problem with stop and search is that what you need is policing by consent. And stop and search is not consensual in communities because it is done in a disproportionately racist way. And that's what all of the evidence shows. If it's disproportionately targeting generally black people, but all, you know, ethnic minorities. I've never been stopped and searched. You've probably never been stopped and searched. That is a real problem. And you've also got to factor in that for young people, you know, people sort of my age, I was born in the 1980s, we're the last generation who were told things will be better than it was for your parents, and then we find out that it's not. Pay is on average the level it was in 2005, the year I left school. But for people born in the 2000s, they have no prospect of life getting better. Life has got worse year on year throughout their lives. Services are being cut, prospects of pay, access to education is all being reduced. So I think these are the things that we should be looking at. And policing has to be consensual. We need community police who are seen as part of the community that they are policing, not who are driving a bigger wedge. And you know, when you say the best police service in best police service in the world, I mean, the Met has, you know, there's report after report of terrible abuses of power, which also tend towards racism and other things like that. So if the problem is crime, just giving the police that are currently not really helping, and which type of police it is, more powers isn't going to reduce that. There are some things that you can do on powers.
James is suggesting that a cut to public services and the racism within the police force leading to knife crime. I say that in Ashfield, where I represent, I'm not sure about where you represent, Henry, that we've had cuts. We've had public services trimmed down. We've had, you know, local services cut back. There's no knife crime epidemic in Ashfield.
Well, fortunately, there aren't many incidents of knife crime in Crawley either. And actually, police numbers over the last decade have actually increased in the constituency that I represent. They haven't gone down, and there is community policing. But James is right. I mean, I think there's a whole range of reasons as to why crime exists, and one single measure isn't going to tackle that. But I do think stop and search is an important tool. And the evidence also suggests that if you are a young person carrying a knife, the chance of your own knife being used against yourself in a crime is hugely increased. And that's got to be something that we need to encourage young people not to get involved with.
So, James, you talk about 13 years of Tory rule. It's a term we hear a lot these days in politics. But what about parents? When are they going to take responsibility for what their children are going out doing on the streets of London?
I mean, I think parents do take responsibility, and that is a constant. But, I mean, when you have less money, higher, lower wages, higher rent, fewer services, this puts it's squeezing whole communities, and you've got that in...
So higher rents, increasing knife crime? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying falling living standards and a loss of hope for young people, it will lead to more crime. Now, there are some things that we can do to directly deal with it. I would support much tougher bans on knives.
My parents were brought up in abject poverty in the 50s, 40s and 50s, just after the war. They didn't go out stabbing people. They had nothing, absolutely nothing. So I'm not buying that, James.
Well, in the 1940s firstly, the country had come together during World War II. Now we're split apart. We then had the creation of the welfare state, the NHS, and we had large-scale, year-on-year, big increases in living standards for the overwhelming majority of people. So people had a lot more hope. Part of the thing, right now, of course, the financial average for today is higher than it was then, but there is a lack of hope because people look at their lives and their community's lives and they see them getting worse, and they don't see that about to turn around.
Henry,
and that's the real issue.
I'm going to give you the last minute on this. Obviously, I disagree with James, as I do on most things. He seems to suggesting the state should be taking over parenting of children. I don't think. Well, you are actually. You're blaming the state for people going out stabbing people, and the education starts in the household. It should be good parenting that stops this, not the state. I believe that.
There are too many young people starting school who can't dress themselves, can't speak the language properly, still not toilet trained, and there is a real concern about a lack of proper parenting. It isn't always up to the state to do everything. The state is there as a partner, but parents really need to be the primary educators of children, particularly in those early years, because then the situation is set for the rest of that young person's life.
You see, when I started school, guys, I knew the difference between right and wrong. I knew how to tie my shoelaces. I knew my times table up to, I think it was 10. I could write my name and address. I could change my clothes. I could feed myself. I think you're quite right there, and we see a lot of that in schools today. I know because my wife was a school teacher, that she spent half her time actually dressing children, taking them to the toilet when they did PE. They did about 5 minutes PE out of an hour session because the children couldn't get undressed and dress themselves. I actually think, and I'm not for state control, that there should be some sort of test for children when they start school. They should be able to do these things. They should be able to tie the shoelaces and feed themselves and and write their name. I think that's just should be a basic entry level as a 4 or 5 year old child.